I'll turn my camera on. Hello, my name is Brigitte. I'm a fifth-year medical student at Cardiff University. So I'll be running the first of the five UCAT sessions that we actually have. So this is just an introduction to the UCAT exam itself, just familiarizing yourself with the structure of the UCAT, trying to help you figure out how you can, book the UCAT exam and understand how you can use your UCAT score itself. So the slides, some of the slides and the questions have been reused from last year, but most of it is made for this year. So hopefully it's not a repeat of last year. Okay, so just a bit about In2MedSchool itself. So we are a Widening Participation charity. The charity itself, the organization itself was started in the summer of 2020, but it achieved the charity status in 2022. So the organization mainly consists of medical students as well as doctors from all over the UK. So we're kind of focused on providing free mentoring sessions and kind of putting events like these webinars to help you with your UCAT and your interview prep. Can you guys hear me? Someone just said that.
I can hear you. You're fine.
Okay, fine. Cool. Okay. So like I said, we offer one-to-one mentoring sessions. We offer online webinars. And we also have a lot of educational resources on our website. So we've put in the link for the website that you can have a look at and see what's actually running this year, okay? Okay, so just a bit about myself. Sorry. Can you see the presentation or no? I think some people can and some people can't. Okay. I'll just carry on. Right. So I've been a UCAT officer since 2024. I'm currently a fifth-year medical student at Cardiff University. So I start working as an F1 in August. Oh wait, sorry. Some people can see the presentation, some people can't. If you can't see the presentation or hear me, maybe try and leave the meeting and come back. Sean, can you hear my hear me and see presentation? Okay, I'll just carry on then. If you're having technical difficulty, maybe try and leave the meeting and come back, okay? Okay, so again, I'm a UCAT officer since 2024. Like I said, I'm a fifth-year medical student and I sat the UCAT in 2019. So it's a while away, but really the techniques that you use for the different sections of the UCAT and how you approach the exam is really kind of the same essentially. And there's been a few tweaks in the exam as well that I'll talk about further, okay? Okay, so this is where I'd like you guys to log on to Menti and kind of just so use the code that's on the, so if you can't see the code itself, it's 16964330 to actually enter Menti. So if you get your phones or your laptops, try and log into Menti and just tell me what you guys know about the UCAT exam. Yeah, so someone said it's 2 hours long, needed for medical school, consists of 4 sections. Someone said you need to get at least 2,700, which we'll talk about. Yeah, it consists of sections, computer-based, done digitally. Yeah, someone said no one likes it. Yeah, all of you seem to have a rough idea of what the UCAT exam is, and hopefully by the end of today you'll know a bit more about what these sections that you guys are talking about and what you need to do actually in order to actually book the exam and sit it, okay? All right, so learning objectives for today is to understand the format and the structure of the UCAT, kind of understand a bit about how your UCAT score will actually be used, and then just to feel a bit more confident about sitting the UCAT exam, because I know that there are certain steps that you just need to take in order to like create an account and book in your test and knowing what you need to take for your UCAT exam, etc. So that you know all of that and you're not caught off guard on the day of the exam and you can just focus on the exam itself when it's actually happening, okay? So we'll talk about the structure, talk a bit about the statistics from previous years, understand your UCAT score. So we'll kind of talk about how you can use your UCAT score to think about the universities that you want to put for your UCAT application, think about applying for university. And I've got a bit of some practice questions, although this session is mainly kind of me giving you information. So it's a bit information heavy and it's a bit more me talking at you. So excuse that. But for the rest of the 4 sections we've got planned, we've got lots of practice questions that we can go through in a lot more detail, okay? Just this session is a bit more information heavy. Okay, so UCAT format and structure. So like some of you guys said, it is an aptitude test. So it is the University Clinical Aptitude Test. So it takes place under examination conditions. So it is actually 117 minutes and 30-second long exam. So it used to be 2 hours up until last year, but there was a section that was removed for this year. So the exam's now specifically 117 minutes and 30 seconds long, okay? And again, it's under exam conditions, so you would go to a test center to actually sit this exam. And as you can see in the picture, it's a digital exam, okay? So it's not paper form. So it's currently used by 45 UK universities. So it's not just for students that are like taking or applying to medicine. It's also for students that are applying to dentistry. There was an exam called the BMAT, which is no longer in place now. So most of the universities currently just take in consideration what your UCAT score is. And some universities use UCAT differently to others. So when I applied for Cardiff, Cardiff didn't consider UCAT scores at all. They said that the only time they considered UCAT was when like two students got the same interview score, but they only had one place to give. So they'd compare the UCAT scores and they give it to the student that had a higher UCAT score. But that was when I was applying in 2019. I think they're using UCAT scores a bit more now to rank students. Some universities I know won't give you interviews if your SJT band is a band 4. Some just like use it completely to tally who they give their interview slots to. So a lot of these are actually like openly said on the website, the university's website itself. So when you end up getting your UCAT score, you can have a look at like what universities, what you want to go through, and then you can apply tactically then, okay? So this is just a list of the universities that use their UCAT. So it's not just for undergraduate courses, it's also used for some postgraduate courses as well. Again, this is from the UCAT website. So if you head there, you can also find the same information. I'm just putting it visually for you. Okay. So this is the timeline for the UCAT exam. So there's a 2-step process for you to book your UCAT exam. So you need to create an account first. So that you can create already. It opened on the 13th of May. So if you've not already done so, you can do this after the talk. You just need to create an account for the Pearson through the Pearson VUE website. And then you can only start booking tests on the 17th of June. Yeah. So once you've got the account, you can start booking your tests from the 17th of June. Okay. If so, the test actually runs from the 7th of July, and the last exam is on the 26th of September. Okay. So you can book it anytime from the 7th to the 26th of September. What other things do you need to know? Oh yeah, so even though the last exam date is the 26th of September, the last day that you can actually book your test is the 19th of September, okay? Yeah, that's really it. So you'll get your results straight away after you sit the exam. You don't need to do anything with the results. They'll be sent to your respective universities kind of early November, okay? And obviously, as many of you might know, the deadline for UCAS for medicine, dentistry, or Oxbridge is the 15th of October. So this is just emphasizing the two-step process for your UCAT exam. So you just create an account. It can be like any email address. Someone's asking about email. It can be any email address. I think you also need to like submit a verification or a photo ID. So when I was making my account, I think I used my passport. You also need to bring a photo ID to your test center. So I think it might be easier if you use the same photo ID. So I brought my password to my test, and I also used it to make my account, okay? And then after you've made the account, you'll get a confirmation email, and then you'll have a username, and then you use that username and the details that you actually get to then book the test, okay? If you're a returning candidate, so if you've already got a UCAT account, you don't need to do anything. You just need to wait for the booking lines to open. So that'd be on the 17th of June. And so yeah, you can start booking from the 17th of June then. Just emphasizing the deadline for booking your test is the 19th of September, but the last day to sit the exam is the 26th, okay? And you can only book in the Pearson VUE eligible test centers. So you can actually put in your address or your postcode to actually find the nearest Pearson VUE eligible test center. For me, it was like the nearest driving test center. So you kind of, that was the closest, and I'd imagine it's the same for a lot of you anyway. Okay. So just looking at the chat, there's no specific, so you just go to the UCAT website itself, and there's an option for you to create an account. So there's no link. And it doesn't ask you to put a photo, so you haven't done anything wrong. It's just verifying when you're actually there on real test day. Okay. Okay. So some of you might not actually know, but you might be eligible for a bursary. So the actual exam itself costs like £70. And if you're eligible for this bursary, it covers the whole of the £70, so you don't need to pay anything. Again, the information in terms of like checking the eligibility for like your bursary is basically like on the website itself. So you can either use this link, or you can go straight to the UCAT website, and there's a section for the bursary, and you can check if you're eligible or not. I think if you get like free school meals, or there's a specific criteria that you need to meet to actually get the bursary, and the bursary is only available for students that are in the UK. Okay, if you don't take the UCAT test in the UK, then it's a bit more, so it's 115, and you won't actually have the bursary. The only caveat is if you are eligible for the bursary, then you need to sit the exam. I think it says, yeah, there's a voucher expiry date, so you need to sit the exam by the 20th. No, I don't remember, but I maybe it might be worth checking out. I thought I've put the information on there, but you might need to sit the exam before the 26th of September. That's what I remember some of my friends saying. but I'll double check on that actually. But yeah, you might be eligible for a bursary, so have a look on the website, okay? And yeah, this is being recorded, so if you're missing something, then you can have a look on when we actually upload this onto our website, okay? So in terms of what you need to bring for the actual exam, you need to bring a valid photo ID for the test center. So when you get there, they take all of your belongings and they put it in a locker. So you'll just have your photo ID. And then they'll give you either a laminated A4 notebook and a pen. I got a paper and a pen for my test. And then obviously you'll also have the on-screen calculator, which you can use in between the exam as well, okay? I think when I sat my exam, I had a paper and a pen, and if you were to ask for a second piece of paper, they'll have to take the paper that you had initially, so you're only allowed to have one piece. Well, at least when I sat it, if you needed a second set of paper, they'll take the first paper away and then give you a new sheet, okay? So just bear that in mind if you get a paper and a pen. It might not be the same for all test centers, but at least when I sat it, it was only that you can only have one paper, okay? Do they offer a handheld calculator? No, they don't offer a hold. So the only calculator that you're allowed is the on-screen calculator, okay? Right. How will you get your results? So after you've completed the exam, you'll get the printout of your score straight away from the person at the desk. You don't need to do anything about it. It's just for you to keep so that you know what your score is, and the results for your UCAT will actually be sent to your universities in early November. So you just keep the paper, and that's just for your information, okay? Okay, so about the UCAT structure. So there, like you guys mentioned earlier, there are 4 sections to the UCAT exam. So there's verbal reasoning, decision making, quantitative reasoning, and situational judgment. So the first 3 sections are actually scored, and the last section is actually abandoned, okay? So the actual exam is out 2,700 it's out of. There was a section called abstract reasoning, but that's no longer a subsection for the UCAT exam, okay? And if you can probably see that the questions and the time that you have is quite limited as well. So that's what makes this exam quite hard, because I'm sure if you have, I don't know, 4 hours, 5 hours to sit the exam, it'd definitely be a bit more relaxed exam than if you have to sit it in, I don't know, less than 2 hours. Okay, so I'll just go through the different sections of the UCAT itself just briefly. Like I said at the start, we actually have webinars for each section in the coming weeks. This is just for me to give you an idea of what the questions that you might expect in the actual exam itself, okay? So I've got 1 or 2 practice questions for each section. So the first section I wanted to go through is verbal reasoning. So this is basically a section trying to assess your reading and text interpretation skills. So the section has 44 questions in total, and you have a time limit of around 22 minutes. So you have roughly 30 seconds to answer a question. So it's really trying to focus on you being able to look at a big piece of data and looking at the question, and it's just trying to gain your understanding of how well you can interpret the text and how well you can use the information that's given on the passage, manipulate it a little bit, and actually answer the question. Okay, so the verbal reasoning section itself has 11 passages. So they're all normally non-fiction pieces of information. Some of the passages can be short, so they can be just 2 paragraphs, whereas others can actually be 4 to 5 paragraphs that are varying in length. So it's quite a big chunk of data, okay? And each passage actually follows with like 4 different questions. Okay, that's where the 44 questions come from. So it's 11 passages at 44 questions. So 4 questions each for the passage. So really you have 2 minutes per passage, and then essentially 30 seconds per question. Okay, so so the next slide is going to just give you a practice question. So I'll get ready with the timer. So I kind of just wanted to give you however much the exam will let you. So this is the first question. It's only 2 questions, so I'll give you a minute to answer. And again, you can answer on Mentee. So it's a bit complicated. So there's 2 different slides for you to answer, but you can actually, so yeah, if you guys take a minute to try and look at the questions and attempt to answer on Mentee, that'd be great. I'm sorry, the text is a bit blurry. Maybe I'll definitely like talk through the text in the coming section. So okay, if a majority of you can't see it, then we'll just move on to just going through the questions, should we? Okay. So for those who did answer, a lot of people are answering like A or D. So the correct answer is actually, apologies that you couldn't actually see the question very clearly, but the question is, so the correct answer for the question is option B. It's saying that the king was counter-revolutionary. So the trick to verbal reasoning is trying to find like keywords in the actual question. And then you kind of try and skim read through the actual passage itself to find areas where the keyword is actually mentioned. So obviously this whole passage, when you have a look later, when you actually get the slides, after you fill in the feedback form, you can have a look at it properly. The whole passage is talking about the French Revolution. And then it's kind of talking about the role of the king. So the correct answer is actually mentioned on passage 4. That it's saying that the hold on. So it's mentioning about the role of the king itself, and it's saying that not only did the king appear reactionary, he was truly working to subvert the revolution. So subvert basically means against. So that's essentially how you interpret that passage or that sentence to actually get to the correct answer of the king was counter-revolutionary. Apologies that you couldn't see the actual passage clearly. When you get the slides, the passage will be clearer and you can actually take a bit of time to actually read that, okay? So someone's asked, would you recommend reading the questions first, then reading the passage, or the other way around? I think if you were to read the passage first and then the question, trying to read the passage itself probably might take you, I don't know, like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and that's time that you're supposed to be answering the questions. So when I did it personally, I tried to read the question itself, try and identify the keywords, and then just skim reading and trying to find anywhere on the passage that mentions the keywords that I've identified essentially. And that way you can kind of kind of like not actually have to read the whole passage, because for these verbal reasoning questions, you don't actually have to read the whole passage itself. It's just, I don't know, 1 or 2 sentences that you need to actually get the right answer, okay? So in terms of ways to improve, like on verbal reasoning, it's like the whole UCAT exam is, you just need to keep on practicing, but especially for verbal reasoning. I struggled quite a lot in terms of managing my time for verbal reasoning itself. Sorry. So I just like kept on like doing more and more verbal reasoning questions, because I knew that was where I wasn't very strong at anyway, and that's how you get better at identifying those keywords, identifying areas where the passage actually says. Okay. So I'm guessing you guys couldn't really answer the second question either. But the second question is, the reason it's probably blurry is because it's a screenshot of like the question, so that's probably why it's blurry. But when it's converted to a PDF, it'll be clear. Okay. So the second question is, which of the following statements is true? The right. So far I've had like 7 responses. Bearing in mind I've only just activated the question. The correct answer is actually not C. It's actually D. So the correct answer is popular terrorism. Popular terrorism was one reason why France became a republic. So, like I mentioned, the whole question itself is talking about the revolution. So in here, you kind of need to realize that the keyword here is like popular terrorism, because, you know, France and revolution and republic is mentioned kind of all throughout the passage itself. And the popular terrorism is actually mentioned in paragraph 3. So it says, yet France was not plumbed into republicanism by popular terrorism alone. So you're kind of interpreting that sentence to say that there's more than one reasons as to why the French Revolution actually happened, okay? So which it actually supports the statement that popular terrorism was one reason why France became a republic, but there's more than one reason, okay? It's not saying that that was the only reason why France became a republic. And as you can see on the slide, I'm not going to go through each sentence, but when you get the slides, you can read it in your own time. It goes through why the others are not actually the right answer, okay? So in terms of tips and tricks for verbal reasoning, that's just an idea of what verbal reasoning questions you might actually get. So it's kind of just to practice your skim reading and basically try and identify keywords in the actual question itself. Verbal reasoning, I definitely didn't finish all the questions in my UCAT exam. I think I couldn't really read the last passage itself, but I still put in, I don't know, whatever option I thought it might be, because you can always flag questions and you can always go back. But what I found was that even if I flagged it, I didn't have time to go back to the flagged question. So even though I do flag questions, I still put an answer in, because there's 1 in 4 chance that your answer might actually be right. So if you want to review questions, definitely do use the flag function, but just don't flag and not put in an answer. Just flag, put in an answer, and then move on. If the question is asking for statements that might be true, and if the statement uses extreme language, then it's actually less likely to be true, actually. So you can kind of rule that out before even reading the passage. Okay, you don't actually lose mark for incorrect answers, which is why you should just put in an answer even if you don't know. If you can't finish the questions, it doesn't matter, but obviously you won't get a score, so your score kind of decreases. So if you know you're running out of time, you just put in like any options so that you can actually fill in all the questions. It's not going to penalize you. So yeah, just put in an answer, use your flag functions, okay? Okay, so that's verbal reasoning, or just an idea of what verbal reasoning questions there are, okay? So the next question is, sorry, not next question. Next section is about decision making. So this is basically trying to assess like your logic, how you deduce information, so that information can be in the form of like text, it can be Venn diagrams, it can be puzzles. So the section has 35 questions and a time limit of 37 minutes. So you have a bit more time to answer one question. So you have a little over a minute to answer each question, okay? So these are the different types of questions you might actually have for decision making. So the next webinar we have on next Thursday is actually on decision making. So we'll go through the different types of questions that you might actually encounter in decision making, and we'll practice questions. But this is just a few example question types that you might actually have in your decision making. So again, I've got a question. I'll give you, hopefully this is a bit more clearer. So I'll give you a minute to answer this question and give it a go. So just re-emphasizing, there's no negative marking. You just don't get any marks for that. So don't waste your options by not putting anything in. So the Mentimeter code is on the slide if you guys didn't catch it last time. Try and put in. I can't see who put in what answer. No one else can. So just commit to an answer. Okay. So that's the minute up. Let's see what you guys chose. So most of you went for option B, which is the right answer. So let me just get. Okay, I'm hoping you can see my cursor now. So the correct answer is actually option B, which majority of you did get. So well done. So what you need to identify is basically, so the option B is saying that 3 customers bought Worcester sauce and cheese and onion crisps. So we know that Worcester sauce is in the form of a cylinder, and cheese and onion crisps is in the form of an arrow. So you need to identify the area where the cylinder and the arrow crosses, and that is where this is. So that's number 3. And that's how you get to the right answer. So Venn diagrams are quite simple. So if it's mainly like trying to deduce what's answer. So it's lucky that this was option B, but if it was like option D, then you'd be spending a long time to try and go through the options and actually come to the right answer. But yeah, well done to everyone who got the right answer. I'll just go through the rest as well if I think it is a bit simple. But option A is not right, because the ready salted crisps is this lightning diagram. So you need to find where none of the shapes cross, and there's actually 10 customers who only bought ready salted crisps. So that's why that's not the right answer. And the next one customer bought cheese and onion and prawn cocktail. Again, it's literally just trying to sit down and go through the shapes and seeing where the shapes crisscross. But well done to the majority of you who got it. Okay, so this is the next question. So the question is at the bottom. So you just need to say yes or no So it says compound A contains the same number of same number of moles as compound D, yes or no, using the information that you've been given. We have around 20 seconds left. You're more than happy to use the Mentee, or you can use the chat function. Okay, so that's the minute up. Okay, so 70 of you said, but the answer is yes, and 37 said no. Okay, so the right answer, okay, I guess I decided I'll go through the question. Okay, so with this, we can familiarize ourselves with the data. So unlike the previous question, it's not a Venn diagram. It's giving you a table, and it's talking about compounds. It's talking about masses and molar masses. And note that it's just giving you an equation to calculate moles, and it's not actually giving you the moles for each compound itself. And there's a big text kind of explaining how you can do that and what the compound is, okay? You don't need to read. This is just you familiarizing yourself with the data quickly. You don't need to essentially read all of the information, okay? So next you're going to look at the question. So you know that there's a table with masses and moles, masses, molar masses, and an equation. So the question's asking you to compare compound A to compound D, but it's asking you to compare the moles of compound A and compound D. So you need to identify the data that you actually need from the text, okay? So I've highlighted that. So you only need to look at the compound A, and you only need to look at compound D, and you need to then use your calculator, or you can do mental math, to then calculate the moles for both of the compounds, okay? And they both come down to half, or 0.5. So the correct answer is actually yes, okay? So this is just I just wanted to show you a different type of question that you might actually get for decision making, okay? So you can get tables, Venn diagrams, syllogisms. So we'll go through all of that next week, okay? Okay, so we have 2 more sections to go through now. And you can give yourself a 5-minute break, and we'll come back in 5 minutes, okay? So I think some people were talking about rounding and things. I think to make the maths a bit easier, so you could use like 9.01 and 18.02 with the calculator itself. But again, putting that into a calculator kind of takes time. So I just used the whole numbers itself, thinking that it'd give me like the closest number to the moles itself. And that's why I used 9 and 18 and 14 and 28. Just because it takes, it takes a couple more seconds to put it in the online calculator. So I'm still sharing the presentation. I'm not sure why some of you can't see the presentation. I haven't stopped it or anything. So I'll just try and answer a couple questions on the chat. So someone asked about what books you can read for your med school applications. Everyone kind of told me to read This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. So I read that, but really like I read more when it came to my interviews. I kind of read a lot more books on like professionalism and like clinical practice and things, because I knew a lot of those questions might come up. So I used that during my interviews, and that helped. In terms of like boosting your reading speeds, for available reason, it's literally just like doing as many questions as you can. Like sign up. You can either buy like UCAT books, or you can sign up to like Medify to practice like as many questions as you can, essentially. In terms of like attendance, the where you'll get these slides is by filling in like the feedback form right at the end of this event. So that's the only form that you guys need to fill to get the presentation slides. So you can find the nearest centre for your UCAT through the like UCAT website itself. Like you can put in your postcode, and it'll give you a list of locations in the order of like the nearest centre to the furthest. Even if you're applying for dentistry, it's definitely worth having a bit of knowledge, especially because, we both have to talk about like clinical like practices in real life, and talk about professionalism. We're still dealing with patients, like real life patients. So it's definitely worth having a slight knowledge before the interview. I'm not sure like what the questions are for dentistry specifically, but I wouldn't have thought it would completely like not include any professionalism or clinical practice questions. There is a timer. Well, I had a clock and a timer in the exam. Yeah, you get the feedback form today. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the last two sections for the presentation today. Okay, so the next section I wanted to talk about is quantitative reasoning. So this is basically a section that is assessing your problem solving and then your numerical skills. I thought when I was practicing for this section that I was going to spend so much time trying to interpret the actual question and the numbers were going to be difficult. But in reality, when I actually sat the exam, it was more like questions that just required like GCSE knowledge. So it was kind of talking about like speed equations, like distance, areas and things. And those are all that you could like nothing of A-level A-level maths knowledge was required. So just brush up on like GCSE maths equation definitely before the section. So the section itself has 36 questions and a limit of 26 minutes. So just, again, a bit less than a minute to answer the question, okay? The question, again, there's a bit of data that's presented to you initially, and then there's a set of 4 questions that follow. However, some questions can be like standalone questions. They don't necessarily all have to have 4 questions that are subset. So you need to be able to, read the table, interpret the information from that table, use just text, graphs and charts as well. So you can have like pie charts and like bar charts that you might actually need to interpret for the question, okay? And you just select the correct answer from the option that you're given, okay? So I'll give you 45 seconds to answer this question. So again, you can use the Mentimeter. The code is on the slide itself. It's 16964330. Oh my days. Okay. Sorry, guys, I should have realized that there's no E on the section. So the correct answer is actually not A, B, C, or D. It's actually E, which, sorry, wasn't actually on the Mentimeter itself. So as you can see, like from the question itself is it's not that difficult, although the question does contain a couple of steps. So we can work through this question one by one. So this is talking about a car rental company that charges £25 a day for renting a car. It's saying that there's a one-off insurance fee of £50 for each car rented, and the company rents out 120 cars in one day. How much money will the company make in total? So you're first calculating the daily rental charge for the cars itself. So there's 120 cars, and if each car costs £25, then it's 120 times 25, which is 3,000. And then there's also an insurance fee on top of it for 120 cars. So that's 50 times 120. So that's 6,000. And then you just add 3,000 and 6,000 together to give you 9,000. Okay. So I hope that was clear, and sorry that there was no option E on the Mentee. Well done for noticing. Okay, so I think my advice for quantitative reasoning is, even though there's the online calculator for you guys to use, if you can do like mental math quickly, then try not to use the calculator. That's not to say that if you're not confident with big numbers, then don't use it, because you might end up getting the question wrong. But if you can do mental math quickly, then it saves a couple of seconds for you to actually just have a bit more time to the question itself. Revise your percentages, your proportions, ratios, rates, averages. I think that those are the like main topics for quantitative reasoning that you need to be confident in to answer the questions here. Always practice using the online calculator. I know that when a lot of people practice it, they practice using like the physical calculator, but it's not actually the same when you're actually doing the exam, because it requires you to click each number, and all of that takes a bit of time. So make sure that you practice using the online calculator. Get familiar with the online calculator itself. When you do practice questions on the UCAT website, you'll see what the online calculator looks like. So you can practice using that. Okay, and then pay close attention to the units of the question itself. Sometimes that can trick people up, and it might be that you got the right answer but in a different unit. So try and pay close attention to all of that when you're answering. Okay. Okay. Can you bring your own keyboard and mouse? No, you can't bring anything. The only thing you can bring is your ID, and you can use your the paper and the pen, or the whiteboard that they give you. Okay, you can't bring in anything of yourself. So when I was doing my exam, I had the computer keyboard. I don't know how it might vary test center to test center, so you might have to click using the mouse. People are asking about clear water bottle. I'm not exactly sure if you can bring a clear water bottle. I don't remember if I did myself. You might just want to double check. Oh, there we go. You're not allowed to bring food and drink. So I guess no to water. Okay, so the last section is the situational judgment. So this is basically not a scored, this is not a scored section, so it's banded. So this usually gives you a real world situation, although sometimes it sounds really it doesn't really happen in real life. But essentially, they're trying to test your response to how you would react in that particular scenario. So there's 69 questions and a time limit of 26 minutes. Again, you have less than half a minute to answer each question. Okay. And you'll be given various scenarios and associated questions with that. So the different types of questions for situational judgment is you ranking the appropriateness of what that person did in that scenario, talking about how important certain considerations are in a particular scenario, and the last one is considering what you need to so it's kind of just ranking the response of that particular person. Okay. It's more clear if I try and show you an example. So this is an example question of an SJT that you might actually get. So the question type is basically you looking at the appropriateness of whatever. So how you answer this is, so you read the question, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4, the decline to give the revision source, don't look at the paper. So those are all the 4 sub questions associated with that scenario. And what you need to do is, for each sub question, you need to say if it was a very appropriate thing to do, or if it was appropriate but not ideal, or if it was inappropriate but not awful, or a very inappropriate thing to do. So you just need to match that up to the 4 sub questions. So on the Menti, if you guys can just like jot down what the answer for each subsection is, you can then put it on the Menti, because I have each questions as different slides, so I might just need everyone to like just jot it down separately on a piece of paper so that you can compare it to the right answer when it comes to it. So you can match the, so the question's asking, is only one answer matched to one, or can you do the same answer for 2? So you can do the same answer for 2 questions. It's not going to stop you. So you can say it's a very appropriate thing to do for all 4 of them. Like you can do that in the exam. It's not stopping. Okay. 10 more seconds. All right. Okay. Let's see. Ooh, we're very divided. Right. So let's go through this scenario. So this is talking about a junior doctor who recently qualified, and they're running a revision course for medical school. The revision course is for final year medical students who are stressed about their written examination. So he's been given, so in this scenario, the junior doctor's been given a copy of the yet unseen upcoming examination paper by one of the students in the final year. The junior doctor has not looked at the paper, and he had no prior knowledge of the examination paper, okay? So the question is, how appropriate are each of the following responses by Dr. Balabhaskaran in this situation? So you need to think about how appropriate the following scenarios are for the junior doctor to do, okay? So what should he decline to give the revision course? So I would say for those of you who've answered, everyone's kind of split on 16 people have said a very appropriate thing to do. 26 said appropriate but not ideal, and 23 each have said inappropriate but not awful. So the right answer is actually, it's a very inappropriate thing to do. So you need to think about certain, so the junior doctor 1 did agree to give the revision course. He has not actually seen the paper. So the leaked paper is not actually associated with him. So completely declining to give the revision course just because he knows that there's a leaked paper is not very appropriate. That's basically what the question is trying to get you to kind of determine, okay? So yeah, so the complete answer on to why is actually given on the slide itself. So he's seen the paper, he has no knowledge of what the paper actually contains, so he can still give the course itself. There's no reason for him to not give the revision course itself, okay, just because there's a leaked paper. So the right answer would be a very inappropriate thing to do. Right. The next question says, so don't look at the paper, but hold on to it, give the course to the students and try to cover all aspects of the final medical school syllabus as he had planned. So I'll give you guys, I don't know, like 15 seconds to maybe answer on Mentees, just so that I can see what everyone else is thinking. So we've got a couple of 4s, 3s, and 2s on the chat. But okay, so a lot of you have said it's a very appropriate thing to do, and some of you have said appropriate but not awful, but you know, we still got a bit of inappropriate but not awful. Okay. So the correct answer is, wait, hold on, I'll give you the explanation as well. It's an inappropriate thing to do, but not awful. Okay, so the reason this would be inappropriate is he's held onto the paper. He's not done any action, even though he knows that there's a leaked paper. That's why there's an inappropriate component to the answer itself. And the fact that he hasn't looked at it, and the fact that he's not trying to be biased based on the actual paper and when given the revision course is why it's inappropriate but not awful. But if I were to make a guess, and if he'd looked at the paper and if he was trying to give the revision course based on the questions on the leaked paper, then it would be a very inappropriate thing to do. Okay, so the reason it's inappropriate is because he hasn't actually done anything, even though he knows that there's a leaked paper, and it's not awful because he hasn't actually looked at the actual paper itself, and he's trying to cover everything. Okay. Okay. Next one, again, I'll give you, I don't know, couple of seconds to answer this question. So the question reads, the junior doctor should report to the examination board that the papers have been leaked. Okay, a couple more seconds, and so we've got a couple of 1s on the chat. Okay, so overwhelmingly, most of you have said it's a very appropriate thing to do. Some of you have said it's appropriate but not ideal. Okay, so the answer is actually it's a very appropriate thing to do. So the fact that he knows that there's a leaked paper, it's kind of his responsibility to at least report to the examination board of the leakage, because it's an unprofessional thing to do. So that's why it's a very appropriate thing to do, and that's why the previous question, the fact that he just held on to the paper, is why it was an inappropriate thing. Okay, so the correct answer is that it was a very appropriate thing for him to do, to report to the examination board that the exam papers were leaked. So well done to the majority of you. And then we've got one more question. I think that's the last question for today. So someone's asked if you're allowed to make any notes. You're not allowed to bring any notes whatsoever. All you're allowed is the paper or the whiteboard that you're given. Okay. So we've got a couple of 1, well, 1, and then a couple of 2s. Okay, right. So the correct answer is actually that it's a very appropriate thing to do. Okay. So I do get why some of you would have said that it's appropriate but not ideal, but cheating is very unprofessional, and this is a final year paper, and the fact that the junior doctor knows of the student, it should be his responsibility to report that student to the examination board. Okay, we don't know what happens. Most likely, student might not, be disqualified from the exam, and there's repercussions. But at the end of the day, it's very unprofessional to cheat and have those papers in hand before the actual exam. So that's why this would be, so the fact that the junior doctor reports the student to the examination board is a very appropriate thing to do, okay? Because it's a very serious issue, okay? Yeah, there's only always one answer to this, which is why it makes it really difficult to band really well in like the SJT, because there's a specific answer that the exam is looking for. And, you could argue that, in this scenario, that it was appropriate for him to report to the examination board, but it was not ideal. You could argue both ways, but at the end of the day, it's kind of familiarizing yourself with scenarios that the SJT want you to put a specific answer, and you only know how to do that by practicing the SJT questions, and you have to read the explanation as to why certain answers was appropriate but not awful, or appropriate but not ideal, or inappropriate but not awful. So the book I used gave really good explanation for the SJT answers. So it definitely came in handy when I was like doing my UCAT exam. But yeah, you might not actually react like this in real life scenario, but the exam kind of expects you to know how to react in a certain scenario, okay? Okay, tips and tricks is you just need to familiarize yourself with the professionalism guidelines. So there's websites, I'll tell you the book at the end after this. So you can familiarize yourself with the GMC's Good Medical Practice document. It is a very long document, but definitely for like your interviews, I would definitely have a look at some of the documents on there, but also for your SJT, it might actually help when answering scenarios. You need to also understand that certain questions, so in this question, for example, this question was asking about the responses of the junior doctor itself, but this question might easily be talking about responses of the student instead. So make sure that you actually read who the key person in that particular question is when you're trying to answer, okay? SJT time is, I don't know, 20 to 22 seconds per question. You get okay. That was the, oh, there's a couple more slides. This is just talking about how your UCAT score is actually used. So definitely for your SJT, I know that Cardiff put a lot more emphasis on like the SJT score. I think if you were a band 4, you wouldn't be called for an interview in Cardiff, and I know that that might be the case for some other universities as well. Okay, so even though it's not like a scored section, I definitely look at the answers and look at the explanation as to why certain answers are correct, okay? And I just had a quick look at what the UCAT score requirements were for 2024. And the lowest score that was used was like Dundee with a score of 1940, and Bristol had the highest UCAT threshold with 2,940. And bearing in mind, this is a bit different because this is still when the abstract reasoning section was still in place. So the scores might not be very translatable, but you can kind of get an idea of which universities ask for more UCAT and which doesn't. So I kind of got this information from Medic Portal. So there's you can also look at some universities do actually tell you how much UCAT score they actually required on their websites itself, so you can actually have a look at that as well. Okay. How long do you get to read the passage in SJT? So like I said, if there's like 4 sub questions for the SJT scenario itself, that's all the time that you actually have to actually read the SJT passage itself. There's no specific time to read the SJT question and then answer the question. It's all the same time. Okay, this is just like a simple table that I use. I didn't make, but I used ChatGPT to quickly like put in all the universities that actually disclose their UCAT scores, just so that you can visualize which universities required what. And again, this was using the Medic portal. So if you want more information, you can go on to the Medic portal website to have a look as well. Okay. Okay. Right, so that is the end of the presentation. I did say I'll let you know what book. So this was the book that I used, but this was a book I used in 2019. So it's pretty, I don't know if there's like different editions to this book itself, but that's what I used. A lot of my friends use Medify as well. So the book is called 1250 UCAT practice questions. I think it comes up pretty quickly when you try and look up. So before you guys leave, make sure you fill in this feedback form so you can put in your email address, and then you can get a copy of these slides then so that you can actually look at the questions that were blurry. So I'll hang about for a couple more minutes before you guys leave. So would you recommend paying courses to study for the UCAT? So personally, I didn't pay anything for for UCAT courses. There's we run free UCAT webinars like these. It's up to you how you use your money, but there's a lot of resources out there that are free as well that you can use. But if you feel one-to-one support is better for you, then yeah, feel free. But I personally didn't use any UCAT courses. When would you recommend starting to prepare and revise for the UCAT? So I didn't, hold on, some people are having trouble with the feedback form link. Oh, let me try and find. So for me, I didn't actually start revising for the UCAT until the end of year 12. So I had like the summer, so like June and July to actually revise for the exam. So I sat like end of July. You could it's never too early to like start preparing for UCAT, I would say. So if you're finished with your exams and if you know you're going to sit the exam in the summer, the more preparation that you get, the better. So in my exam, I got like 2000, like 750, 2800 or something around there. Someone asked what you need to get for like top end universities, like UCL, Imperial, Cambridge. I don't know if it was on the table Medic portal, but I have a feeling they'd probably have like a higher UCAT cutoff score than like the other universities. So let me just find this form for those who couldn't see. So that's the link. The exam is open until the end, like 26th of September. So just because you do it earlier or later, it doesn't matter. If you can't do it in July, do it in August. If you can't do it in August, there's no specific month that you have to do it in, to be honest. So it's up to you in terms of how prepared you feel. Okay, so I'm just going to stop the recording.